the continuation of the Church of Tomorrow Morning racism. But understand this, all 7 levels have been working in harmony for over 400 years to maintain one purpose, the domination of black people and people of color, but not to the extent they have hatred and restricted black folk, but for the preservation of white control. That is why we must see racism not as an incident, but as an infrastructure, not as prejudice, but as a policy. It is not random. It is not ritual. It is not accidental. It is architectural. And here lies the truth they fear most. Once you see all 7 levels, you can never again be deceived by the illusion of equality. You can never again believe that a single policy, a single election, or a single apology can dismantle a system that was built in layers of lies. But some black folk will believe, although they know. Some will not be deceived, but believe in the support of white control because it was good for them, or they know not what they do, although they do it to the detriment and harm of a whole people. And we need to know that even before slavery, betrayal existed. Some black spirits were not right. And we as a people cannot allow these snakes, this poison, to spoil our people as a whole. What must be done will not be talked about. But if a European, Asian, Mongolian, Indian betrayed their people, what would happen to them? Recognition is the beginning of revolution, because you cannot fight what you do not see, and you cannot defeat what you refuse to name. So today, I ask you, open your eyes to every level. See the hypocrisy. See how they call for peace while waging war on our mind. See how they claim equality while protecting hierarchy. See how they claim freedom while profiting from our bondage. This is the first step toward liberation, recognition. To dismantle a system built on 7 levels of oppression, we must rise with 7 levels of power, 7 levels of unity, 7 levels of consciousness. The truth is not comfortable, but it is necessary because awareness, true awareness, is the first act of freedom. Now let's talk about it. 7 levels of liberation, resistance. Here is where the fire erupts after the recognition. I was blind, but now I see. We have diagnosed the disease, racism. So what does the doctor prescribe as the cure? Let the rhythm rise. Let the words move through the spirit of those who built nations, yet never reaped their fruits. I say it again, never forget. Let the words move through the spirit of those who built nations, yet never reaped their fruits. Once you recognize the 7 levels of racism, you cannot return to sleep. You cannot unknow what you have seen. You cannot unhear the cries of your ancestors, still echoing through the soil that built empires. Recognition demands response. Awareness demands action. But how do we fight something that has disguised itself in every institution, every symbol, every corner of our consciousness? We fight it where it lives, on every level. For every level of racism, there must be a level of resistance. For every mechanism of control, there must be a mechanism of liberation. Let the count begin. Level 1, liberation of the tongue, speaking truth. Before any revolution can be fought, it must be first be spoken. We liberate the tongue by naming the lies that built the world around us. We must say the words they fear most: reparations, restitution, accountability, truth, because silence is the ally of oppression. Speaking truth to power is not rebellion, it is restoration. When we receive and reclaim our language, when we tell our own story, we shatter the myths that bind us. Let us also remember that this country was founded and begun out of oppression from Great Britain, and we must remind and liberate ourselves like those of yesteryear. No taxation without representation. Where is our representation? Where has our tax dollar gone? Social Security dollar gone? Our rights and privileges never given. Do not whisper truth. Proclaim it. From classrooms to pulpits, from music to media, we must use our voices to reconstruct the narrative, because the words create worlds and we will not live in theirs any longer. Level 2, liberation of the mind, re-education. They built their control through education that erased us. So our resistance must begin by re-educating ourselves. Liberation begins when a child learns who they are, not through the eyes of a colonizer, but through the mirror of their ancestors. We must teach history that does not sanitize slavery, culture that does not trivialize Africa, science that does not exclude black genius. Re-education is not about hate. It is about healing. It is about replacing falsehood with fact, inferiority with identity, confusion with clarity. A people who know themselves cannot be controlled. Level 3, liberation of the economy, reclaiming our labor. They stole our labor to build their wealth. We must now use our wealth to rebuild our power. True economic liberation begins when we circulate the black dollar, invest in our own institutions, understand that ownership is power. When we buy from one another, we are not just spending, we are voting. When we fund our own schools, we are shaping the next generation of leaders. When we build cooperative banks and industries, we are dismantling dependency brick by brick. We cannot pray our way out of poverty. We must plan our way out. Level 4, liberation of the body, health, land, and safety. Our bodies have been battlegrounds in the fields of slavery, in the cells of prison, in the wards of hospital that neglect us. But the liberation of the body begins when we reclaim the right to live in health and safety. We must demand access to clean food, clean water, safe neighborhoods, and affordable health care. We must teach our children that fitness, rest, and self-defense are acts of political resistance, because a strong people cannot be easily subdued, and we must reclaim the land, the earth our ancestors cultivated but were never allowed to own. The soil remembers who fed it. Let it now feed us. Level 5, liberation in the spirit, faith restored. The same scriptures used to justify our enslavement must now be reclaimed to affirm our divinity. Spiritual liberation means returning to the truth that we are not cursed, we are chosen. Every tradition, whether African, Christian, Muslim, or indigenous, must be purified from the poison of colonial theology. Faith must no longer be used to pacify us, but to empower us. When the spirit is liberated, fear loses its grip, because the people who know God within themselves cannot be dominated by gods made in another's image. Level 6, liberation of unity, collective power. They divide us because they fear our oneness. They pit brother against brother, nation against nation, diaspora against our continent. But let me tell you, our liberation of unity means understanding that Africa and Africa and America are one people under different suns. Our struggles are mirrors. The exploitation of our resources and the exploitation of our labor are the same chain. When we not unite, the colonizer trembles. When we unite, policy changes. When we unite, empires crumble. We must build networks across oceans, trade across borders, and solidarity across languages, because liberation is not local, it is global.